My name is Chase, as my wife said a little earlier, and what a privilege it is to get to be with you this morning, to open God's Word together and learn more about what His truth says about who He is, and then who we are, how we are to operate in the kingdom of God. And we've been walking in a series for the last few weeks called on wisdom, and the title of the series is Wisdom. You need it, I need it, we all need it. Wisdom. So if you have your Bibles this morning, I'd love for you to turn to the wisdom book of books, the book of Proverbs. We'll be in Proverbs chapter 17 and 18 today. And if you have your Bibles, I'd love for you to get there and get prepared. 17 and 18. If you don't have a Bible, there's an amazing app called YouVersion, the Bible app. It's amazing to have in the palm of your hand. I'd also encourage you, if you don't have a physical paper Bible, to get one, because there is something as well about the pages for me that helped me disconnect from the screen in a way that just kind of filters and refines my mind. I don't know about you, but sometimes I've got screen overload, and it almost becomes a. Here's what I would say. This is just not on the message, but just to encourage some of you. If some of you are struggling with feeling like your time with the Lord or your relationship with God has a sense of stagnant, lukewarm or dryness when it comes to how those times if they've been enriching or you feel like you're struggling, one of the things I would encourage you to do is to take an honest audit about the screen time that you have been demonstrating in your life. And for me, what I realized is, as much as I love the accessibility on my phone or my tablet with the Bible, there was at times just a blurred overlap of I could scroll right from Bible app to work app, right from Bible app to communication, respond to people app. And just that quick connection created this sense of it all just kind of blurred into one grouping of value. For me, I needed a disconnect, and at times I still do, to just go, there's no app in here that can distract me from what God wants to say. And so I needed it, and I need it still at times as well. And so I just encourage you, that might be a step for you to take when it comes to reading your Bible. Get back to the pages that are paper and eliminate some of those distractions. That's a different kind of message. But for today, Proverbs 17 and 18, we'll be there in a moment. Wisdom. We really have been specifically talking about wisdom in relationships over the last couple weeks, conflict with relationships, how to navigate saying things that you need to say in a way that isn't just torpedo the relationship or the hearts that are connected to those moments, how to not just sit and stew in offense when you know you need or want to say something, but you don't because you're concerned with conflict or creating it. But just talking about that idea of wisdom in relationships. And today, more specifically, as we dive in, we're going to talk about the wisdom that God speaks through His Word in the book of Proverbs when it comes to the power of our words. And we're going to read, first today, we're going to read Proverbs 17, verse 27 through 28, and then we'll dive in a little bit more to 18. But this one's going to be a little saucy. I don't know what that might mean to you, but I know what it means in my mind, but it's just going to be a little saucy, which I hope that the Spirit of God goes, and I pray, and I know He will, He'll go before us today. He'll go before me as I preach, because it's His Word, and He wants you to grow and be fed more than even I do, obviously. So I do pray that He's going to speak to us today through His Word, but it's going to be a little saucy. Words. Let's read Proverbs 17, 27 to 28. It'll be on the screen. I'm going to read from the English Standard Version here. It says this: Whoever restrains his words has knowledge. He who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. Come on, somebody. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. Let me read it again. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, but he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. A few other translations I'm going to read, and the New International Version says that the one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and he is even tempered. The New Living Translation says a truly wise person uses few words. A person with understanding is even tempered. And it continues on. There's this principle throughout the book of Proverbs that Solomon is like so honed in on. And for such a wise man who probably has a lot to say, and understandably, justifiably so, he's got a lot of wisdom. He was deemed the wisest man to ever live on the face of the earth next to Jesus, that God gave him a supernatural wisdom that was nothing he could obtain on his own. You'd think that there'd be a posture of like, I know what to say, I know how to say, I know what to say, all of it in one grouping. I'm going to say it all. But he's over and over and over throughout the Proverbs that we read, speaking into this idea about a wise man using words seldomly and listening much. Some will hear this verse that we just read, and they'll hear it like, see, I don't need to say anything. Boom. That's all I needed. I'm quiet. I'm introverted. I like to keep myself to myself. Thank you, Chase, for validating the reality that like I don't need to say anything. I just need to listen because I want to be wise. Others of you will hear this scripture and read it, and you'll say, see, when I speak, it's wisdom. So listen to what I'm saying. But there's a little bit of a hybrid of the both that I really pray we can come to today as we continue to learn about what that might mean for us, about speaking little and listening much. Let me read another section of a few verses out of Proverbs 18 and then really land on the text for the day. Proverbs 18, in verse 2, Solomon says that a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. I don't have this on the screen. Let me read it again. I just realized I didn't put it on the screen. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. You know anybody like that? Maybe, I mean, if we're being honest, they don't really feel like they want to understand what's going on or they really even care, but they definitely want to let us know how they think and feel about it. Feels like that's 99% of Facebook in general. A couple verses later, verse 6 in chapter 18 says, a fool's lips walk into a fight, and his mouth invites a beating. A fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare to his soul. He's painting this picture that a foolish person gets in trouble and continues to walk in foolishness because their words go before them in a way that leads them into inviting that kind of outcome. A couple more verses here in 18. That I want to highlight here. Verse 13 of 18 says this, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. Speaking to the value of listening and not just speaking. And then finally, here's where we're going to land today. Verse 21, chapter 18. Solomon says that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Death and life and death are in the power of the tongue, and that those who love it will eat its fruit. So, Father, I pray you'd speak to us today through your word. Open our eyes, open our hearts, open our ears to what you want to say, what you want to do. We want to receive it in Jesus' name. Amen. The power of life and death in the tongue, the power of words in our own mind, on our own personhood, and then the power of words in relationships. Words, they've got a lot of weight, and they probably have more weight than we give them credit for on most of our day-to-day interactions and conversations. Most of us don't look at words in the light or live like we believe what Solomon's talking about, that words of the power of life and death. Jesus talks about how every man will have an account for every word that comes out of his mouth, that there's going to be a judgment to what we say. It's got weight. I think about the fact that when God was creating the world, he spoke the world into existence from what we see in Genesis. He didn't put all of his willpower in the palm of his hand, but he spoke spoke it with his mouth. He spoke the world. There's power in words. Words carry weight. Words are powerful, and we don't treat them that way a lot of the time. So what I think can happen in our lives, and especially in our relationships, is that we can very easily not only miss the opportunities to speak life in the way that life can be powerful, but we also do not understand the damage that can happen when we speak death in that way. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that when it comes to our words. But I want to ask a couple questions as we start. When it comes to speaking life and comes to speaking death, let's talk about speaking death for a moment. I want you to think about your life for just a few seconds. Where has death been spoken over you in your life? And in fact, will you do me a favor? Will you close your eyes for a moment and let the Spirit of God speak to you and maybe even highlight some things? When you think about your life, where, if you were to articulate or identify some place or some moment, where has death been spoken over you? You can open your eyes. Some of you, it could be a parent, guardian relationship when you were growing up, when you were a kid, maybe even still present. There's been words of death that have been spoken over you, words of you're not worthy, you're not valuable, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're stupid, you're causing pain to me, even though really you weren't, but it was their inability to be mature and handle their own sense of anxiety or their own issues. But death was spoken over you to be the reason why someone was experiencing what they were experiencing. Maybe it was a spouse, maybe it was a relationship that fell apart, maybe it was from a child, maybe it was from a coworker, a boss, a pastor. Where was death spoken over you? We don't think about that very often. It's a pretty subconscious place that it'll come to the surface in moments, but we don't spend a lot of our time thinking about or identifying those moments. Another question I want you to consider: where are you, if you have a place in your life today, where are you currently speaking death? Where are you speaking death over or into right now? Maybe it is in your future. The outcomes that you can see in front of you, there's no hope, there's no way. Maybe it's in your relationships. But I don't remember, before preparing this message, I don't remember the last time I asked the Spirit and did an inventory and an auditing and go, God, where have I been speaking death lately in my life? A lot of us, what's the phrase? Self-talk is the phrase, but I had a new phrase. I didn't write it down. I thought about it this morning. We speak death over ourselves in our own minds, in our own hearts. We wake up, we look at the mirror. You're ugly. You're not enough. You're fat. You're wrinkly. You're whatever. You don't look like you used to. Your body doesn't feel that way, so you're speaking death over your day. I'm in pain, I'm struggling, whatever that physical thing might be. You think about what you have in front of you for the events or the obligations or the responsibilities, and you're already given the day its value or its outcome because it's Monday. Monday. And you speak death over your day, over your life. Inversely, where are you speaking life right now? When you think about the life that is coming out of your mouth, where are you speaking that? When was the last time you spoke life over yourself, over a person, over a marriage, over a child, over a job situation, over a community, over a presidency, over a nation? When was the last time you spoke life over those situations? Here's something that I realized for me, and I acknowledge for others. Sometimes we struggle with speaking life over a situation or a person because when we think and we feel, if we speak life over somebody or that moment, what we're doing is we're ignoring the reality of the situation. I can't speak life over you because it's not how I either A, really feel yet, or B, if we looking at this mess here, can we see this reality that's in front of us, or this what's taking place. And so if I speak life over this, I'm just validating something that I don't even know or see to be actually true yet. And so I won't do it, or that's not what I see, so I can't speak that. Let me say this to that person that wrestles with that. You can speak life over a person or a situation, and it doesn't mean that you aren't being honest with yourself or the realities at hand. You can speak life over a spouse, even if your marriage and your relationship right now is strained and conflicted, and you've been hurt or frustrated in your relationship, in a relationship with a parent, with a friend, with a coworker, whatever. If the reality is it's not life, you can still speak life over it without ignoring that it has felt like or currently is death. But a lot of us, we don't speak life because we don't see life in front of us, and we don't want to ignore the reality of the situation. But I'm here to encourage you today that in the same way that there wasn't a universe before God spoke it, there was just darkness. The present reality of darkness did not dictate the power and the ability of the words that came out of God's mouth to create life out of nothing. And that's where our DNA comes from. That's the character of God. That's the history and the byproduct of, or the track record of a God. And so it's in our DNA to be able to go, I don't see this in front of me. I don't see my marriage turning around. I don't see my child ever coming back to the Lord. I don't see my body ever getting healed. I don't see my president or my government ever shifting or changing the way that they do things. I don't see hope because it's darkness in front of me, but I will speak life over it because that's the kind of God that I have and I trust and I believe in. So even though I don't see it, I can speak it without it not being a valid reality presently. We need more Christians speaking life even when they don't see life. In fact, I'd go out as far as to say is that's the most important time for people to speak life, is when they don't see it. Don't be discouraged or grow weary in speaking life, even if you have not seen the outcomes yet. And I'm not talking about a prosperity gospel. I'm not talking about speaking a new car into existence that is going to sit on your driveway with a fat bow. Like all of those Kia Christmas commercials, like everybody. I'm not talking about that. Although God can provide vehicles, finances, all that, right? We do believe God can and He will. And speaking life, though, is really, I think it's so important that we see and really audit where we are here. I want to talk about how to have a tongue of life. And I'm really just going to highlight two really simple categories for us to consider as we prayerfully go, God, where am I at here? What do I really believe about this? Is this wisdom when it comes to the value, the power of words active in my life, or am I a wise person or a fool in this category right now? Here's how we can step into the tongue of death to tongue of life way of living, honoring God and blessing and honoring people. And here's the first category: how to have a tongue of life. Bless you. How to have a tongue of life. Number one, speak slowly. Some of you are like, yeah, did you hear what you just said, Chase? I have to run a marathon in my mind listening to you preach every Sunday. So. Speak slowly. You know any slow speakers in your life? Does anybody know? Can you think of a person that's like annoyingly slow when it comes to the way that they speak? You're like, I wish you would just talk faster so we can get to the point. That it's literally never going to be me, but I feel like that. James 1:9. This is where this comes from. James highlights this, and I can't. It feels like he really captured the heart of the wisdom from Solomon. But this is what he says. He says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." And you know what's cool? Throughout the book of Proverbs, how many times words and speaking slowly or speaking less, and then inversely talking a lot or talking too quickly, how they're connected to anger. throughout Proverbs. And then James here is connecting and weaving that together too. Just a note, if you read through the Proverbs, which I'd encourage you to do, by the way, like just, if you're like, I'm struggling with my devotionals right now, or there's so much packed in Proverbs, as many of you know, but some of us need to revisit. If we've been there before, man, revisit like an old hometown, revisit Proverbs. But James says, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Slow to speak and quick to listen. When it comes to your life and your conversations, how is this going? Are you a quick to speak, slow to listen person? Or a slow to speak, quick to listen person? Where are you at on that scale if you were to give it a 1 to 10? 10 being you are very quick to speak, very slow to listen. I'm sorry. That's going to get confusing. You, in your own frame of metric, where are you there? I'll tell you, I'm not where I'd like to be. My dad, Larry, is an amazing man of God. My parents, Larry and Shelley, have just, they're gifts to me and a lot of people that they've impacted in so many ways. But my dad has really embodied this principle of slow to speak and wisdom my entire life. Again, sometimes he's watching, or he'll watch at some point. Sometimes even frustratingly, I won't say annoyingly, but frustratingly so, he'll speak so slowly, or he'll wait to say something, and I'm going like, come on. What do you think? Come on, But I've just, the faithfulness and consistency from my entire childhood till now, my early 30s, that he's been slow to speak has been insanely inspiring for me. And he always reminded my brother and I growing up of this concept. Always, when it came to wisdom, when it came to being slow to speak and quick to listen. And he's modeled it for my entire life as I've watched him. I respect and admire him so much because I don't see a lot of this modeled consistently when it comes to the church. And part of that is the world that we live in, where more people know what the church is against than what we are for. Like they can tell you all the things we're not about, but it's hard for them to find what we are about because we're so vocal about what we're not about. Some of that's due to social media and Facebook, I'm sure. You don't see, in a lot of places when it comes to like those, football games or baseball games, is, by the way, go Mariners, come on, postseason, let's go. Yeah, we can clap for that. Let's go Mariners. You go to a game, if you've ever been there, and there's like somebody got a big old fat sign and like they're yelling something, and usually it's not just like God loves you. Usually it's like you're gonna go to hell. Whatever you're doing is wrong. Now, there's a lot to say about hellfire and brimstone preaching. There's a lot to say about the lukewarmness of the church and the preaching that has happened over the course of the last probably 20, 30, 40 years, from speaking to the severity of sin and its consequences and our desperate need for the blood of Jesus to come and wash that away. That when it comes to understanding the grace that God gives us, that grace is so much more sweeter and more powerful because we know the depths of the sin of where we are and the consequences of that sin. So I'm not here to say that there's not some place and space for that, because there probably needs to be more specifically speaking to the sin that people live in and then the answer to their sin. But most of the people that I know, when it comes to them being on the outside of the church that have some kind of issues, because they have the person at the football or baseball game telling them everything that's wrong, what we're not about, what they're against, rather than what we're for. Christians are more known for what we're against a lot of the time than what we're for. Slow to speak, quick to listen. For you, practically, when you think about speaking slowly, I think about conversations with my wife. And again, I'm a words guy. I'm a wordsmith. I feel like an Olympic athlete at times. I just feel like I could just hurdle things. I could jump over. And I'm sitting there, I have conversations with my wife. She's amazing. And and I'll just so eloquently speak something that just feels like it's right on the money. In a moment of a conflict or an argument, which really isn't an argument, a lot of the times it's just me talking. Maybe this message is really for me. Hold on. And I want her to say something back, and she sits there. She's thinking about it. I'm like, what are you thinking about? What I'm learning, what I feel like God's Spirit is showing, and where a lot of us need to be challenged, is this idea of actually listening versus the appearance of listening. Not only in our marriages, but with our kids, with our friends, with those that aren't currently believing like us yet, or behaving like us yet, or walking away from the belief and the behavior that they've once subscribed to. How many of you, don't raise your hand, but I'm sure everybody in here has got some friends or family that have recently walked away from maybe their belief in God or their followership of Jesus, and you want to go, what the heck are you doing? What's going on up there? This isn't the way we've done things. This isn't who we are, who you are. And when it comes to this idea of listening, I've been so challenged recently when it comes to actually listening versus the appearance of listening. All of us have been in a moment of an argument or a conversation with somebody who, when we've said our piece, but we're still in it, we give, now that their chance is to talk now, they're starting to talk. And as they start talking, what we automatically start doing is preparing for our next opportunity to talk. Have you been there? You know what I'm talking about? You're in a conversation and you say something, it's kind of a little bit heated, and then you stop saying something and that break is there, they start saying something, and rather than actually keying in on what they're saying, you're using their talk time to prepare your next thing to say. How many of you have been in a moment where you're having a conversation with that person and you know that's what's happening in their mind? They're not listening. It's frustrating. It's hurtful. It's not effective in human communication or relationships, and yet so many of us walk in this in the day-to-day. And actually listening looks like listening with an intention to understand. So as I stop talking and I listen to what you're about to say, I'm going to have my ears open and my heart open to try and understand what you're saying and where it's coming from, rather than setting up my catapult for the next verbal launch into enemy territory with my words. It's not just hearing until you have a chance to speak. It's listening with the intention of understanding. That's what it means to be quick to listen. That's what it means to be actually listening. And Jesus modeled this so well. So what relationship in your life right now would benefit the most from speaking slowly and listening quickly? What relationship is desperate for that to change in order for it to get healthier? How to have a tongue of life: speak slowly, listen quickly. And then secondly, how to have a tongue of life: speak truthfully. Now, this one might seem and feel like a given. When it comes to death and life and the power of the tongue, when it comes to the fact that we know God honors and values truth at a really high level. There's a couple scriptures I want to read that just emphasize that. The first one is out of Ephesians. Paul writes, he says, "Therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body." He says this a little bit earlier in Ephesians 4. He says, "Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ." How do you have a tongue of life? You speak truthfully. And this is connected to this last few weeks when it comes to interacting with people in our lives, when it comes to navigating conflict in some of these relationships that we have, or our families, or our people that we don't necessarily agree with or agree with us. Speaking truthfully, speaking truth in love. First, let me acknowledge that before we can speak truth to anybody else, we have to be speaking truth to ourselves. A lot of us have convinced ourselves that some of the lies that we're living in, or untruths or hybrid truths, which is an untruth, there's no middle. Some of us have convinced ourselves in our Christian walks that some of the untruths that we're living in are tolerable and okay. I want to speak to this for a moment. Let me be more clear. Some of us have accepted and have become more tolerant to sin in our life, and we've justified it as okay for a variety of reasons. Different places of darkness that we've come to go, well, it's not that bad. I know what they're experiencing, what they're doing. I'm not in that same space, so we're good. To this mentality that, you know what, this is never going to get overcome, so I'm just going to I'm going to manage this here, this space of untruth, of sin, of darkness, because the reality is that if it were to be exposed, if there were to be light shined in or shown in, that it wouldn't be good. I can manage this. And I've said this before, you've probably heard it before, but humans are terrible sin managers. But we've bought into some lies that we've accepted no longer as lies. We've just kind of morphed them into things that we've become, we can tolerate, and it can be acceptable enough, and we can manage it. And I'm just here to say, like, man, God wants to clean out the basement. Man, the Holy Spirit, he's not trying to make a bunch of people feel bad about themselves every single day, love Jesus and feel like a piece of dirtbag every single day that you live. That's not God's agenda at all. But the Holy Spirit really does want to clean out the basement of your soul. And there's a lot of us living with these little compartments in our hearts and our souls of darkness and thinking that it's okay and we're going to be okay and we're going to live a life that is thriving and is in the light with our relationships, and we're not. And we've bought some lie somewhere and convinced ourselves that the lie really isn't a lie anymore. But I want to challenge you today with the word and in love to ask that you would consider before the Father and let the Spirit of God reveal to you some of the compartments in the basement of your heart and soul that you have allowed to get some cobwebs of untruths, or not being in the truth, or living in the light. Before we can speak truthfully to the people in our lives, we have got to allow the Spirit of God to speak truthfully to us, and then speak truthfully to ourselves and really uncover some of that. That's a big deal. There's a lot more that I really believe that God wants us to go into there, but for the sake of today, that's not the direction of the message, but I could not move past that. There's a moment that somebody needed to hear, that God wants to do some cleaning and some restoring in the basement of your soul. And you can't step effectively into speaking truthfully with other people until you've really walked in that for yourself. So speaking truthfully, in love, starts with you. And then it moves into some of our relationships. And here's where I want to land. This is going to be a real practical way, thing that has been really helpful for me over the last few months. It's been through a resource that I'm sure some of you are familiar with, but also we will begin as a church more and more and more over the coming months, really walking out when it comes to what God's doing in on our foundational level of a church. And it's a resource out of Pete Scazzero's book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. Before I get there, let me say this. One of the greatest causes of anger and frustration, disappointment and hurt when it comes to relationships with our relationships is this idea and issue of unmet expectations. We don't clearly or truthfully communicate expectations with others in our lives, and so from that place creates just an absolute, damage fest in our own minds, hearts, souls, and relationships when it comes to anger, frustration, disappointment, hurt. It's this idea of speaking truthfully about what our expectations are of each other. And I want to speak about, point us to some specifics from this resource that has really been challenging me and encouraging me from Pete Scazzero to walk through what it looks like to really talk about unmet expectations and speaking truthfully about them to the people in our lives. Because this has been life-changing for me, and I believe for the church, if we were to press in more with some of these things here, we'd see God really do something radical in our relationships as well. Unmet, unclear expectations, they create absolute havoc. Employment, in our employment places, our marriages, relationships, friendships, dating relationships, in our churches. Because a lot of us expect other people to know what we want before we say it. Read my mind. Read my face. Read my body language. Those are a few different conversations we had, me and my wife, as we first got married. Like, you should know. What do you mean? I don't know what's in your mind. Well, I gave you enough body language to know. I can't always read your body, your mind, your face. Hi, babe. She's walking. She's out there. Literally, just now she walked through the door and looked back at me. I don't know what that face meant, honestly. If you could just tell me, Holly, that'd be great. Here's the problem with most expectations, and I'm going to put them on the screen. The problem with most of expectations that we have with people is that there's four things. One, they're unconscious. The second one is they're unrealistic. The third one, they're unrealized. And then the fourth one is that they're unagreed upon. And that's the problem with most expectations we have with people. Unconscious, unrealistic, unrealized, and unagreed upon. And we all know the unpleasant experience that it is of other people having expectations on us that we never agreed upon. If you've been there, you're like, what? I had no idea that's what you thought I was going to do, or how? That feeling's not a great feeling. It's like, there's all kinds of things around that. So Pete Scazzaro in his book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, basically proposes 4 characteristics of what it looks like for an expectation to be valid. And this is where I want you to go, okay, God, in these 4 categories, when it comes to speaking truthfully, having a tongue of life, where in these 4 categories have I maybe missed something that you want to do something in the relationships that I'm feeling this in right now? Here's what he says. There's 4 characteristics of an expectation that is valid. Here's the first one. For an expectation to be valid, it has to first be conscious. I have to become aware of the expectations that I have for the other person. Do you really know what you're expecting from the person you have those expectations from? Can you really speak it out? Can you acknowledge it? Is it clear enough to you? Do you have an authentic clarity around what that is? Or do you just kind of feel it? Some of us are in the feel expectations land. I don't really know what I want from you, but I know I need something I'm not getting. What? I don't know what I want to eat, but I need you to make the right decision. I don't know where we need to go to dinner, but you need to make the right decision. And whatever you say, it is the wrong one. It's being conscious of what expectations I do have of the other person. It starts there, because a lot of us, we couldn't even articulate or really know, and that's a great place to start. It's got to be conscious for it to be a valid expectation to have with somebody. A second area of characteristic for it to be valid is got to be realistic. I've got to ask myself if my expectations regarding the other person are realistic. Some of us live in la-la land when it comes to unrealistic expectations. Or we think, a good example, when someone's in a season of singleness, maybe before they've gotten married, their belief of what a spouse is going to do for their life, how they are going to complete them, make them whole, fix all of their longings of loneliness, all of their longings of love, all of their longings of affirmation, all of those different things. I mean, I was there. When I was single, I was like, marriage is going to be everything. And a lot of the world that we experience with movies in Hollywood, they make that out to be the relationship, the romance. But very quickly you realize, my expectations weren't realistic here. She can't complete me. In fact, God uses her to refine and sharpen and break me down sometimes so he can build me up in the way of the Lord. But we have some unrealistic expectations. What may be unrealistic about the expectations that you have right now with another person? Maybe a spouse. Maybe you do expect them to read your mind. Maybe you do expect them to do something that is not possible or should be on their weight or should be on their shoulders to carry, but it is in your mind. But for an expectation to be valid, it has to be realistic. It's got to be something that is not out of the realm of being possible or healthy. So, conscious, realistic. 2 more. Characteristic of a valid expectation is it's got to be spoken. And this is the one where speaking truthfully and clearly when it comes to this world of expectation is, I think, one of the most missed when it comes to the expectations. I have to speak my expectations clearly, directly, and then respectfully to the other person. Sometimes when we, especially I think in marriage, when we live with somebody long enough, we can begin to adopt some habits or some unhealthy systems or routines that we don't revisit anymore because we've just been doing this for so long. And I think one of them is this area of speaking clearly the expectations or the what we need to talk about together. When it comes to our working relationships, when it comes to people we have issues with, this speaking the clear expectations thing has become such an issue. But if your expectation is going to be valid, it has to be spoken. It's got to be shared out of your mouth in a way that you know this isn't just me assuming that they know what I think or feel or believe or want or need, but you actually speak it. And again, back to the power of words. Words have weight. Have you spoken your expectations clearly to the person that you have this expectation with? And then finally, for them to be valid, expectations have to be agreed upon. In order for them to be valid, the other person must become aware and agree to them. Otherwise, it's simply just a hope. And this is real practical. This isn't like heart as much as it is some practical ways to audit and go, God, okay, how can I take some of this conscious, realistic, spoken, and agreed upon and go, do I have any expectations floating out there right now with my relationships that are missing one of these? Maybe you're in a year's kind of journey with somebody because of one of these things missing. You've got this expectation that your son or your daughter should call you or make things right for what they said or they did years ago. So you're not gonna do anything. You're just waiting for the phone call. You're just waiting for them to apologize. Or you've got a spouse who hurt you deeply, and you're still living with that hurt and bitterness and resentment from something that took place months, years ago. A betrayal, a mistrust, a hurtful word, a hurtful thing, and you're waiting for something to happen or change, but you've never communicated it. You've never clearly spoken it, and then you haven't come together. Where are you missing one of these categories in a relationship where your expectations are unmet? Why is this important? Why did I go into this? But here's what I see. I see the enemy wreaking havoc in relationships, in the church, with a bunch of Jesus people, because we're not doing this stuff well. And I get what I just walked through. Those 4 things weren't specifically connected to the scripture here. And I want to acknowledge that. This isn't scripture. This isn't capital T truth. But the principle of the fact that death and life are in the power of the tongue. A lot of us, we don't even allow ourselves to get to the speaking life part because we've got a bunch of hurt and woundedness and bitterness and frustration because of some of these unmet expectations we have with people. And I want to bring us into some of this light and go, where are we letting the enemy wreak havoc in these categories? Because we haven't really taken an audit and go, oh, I didn't even know I had that expectation of that person. I've never even spoken that expectation out to them, and yet I've had it in my mind or we've never even clearly, or it's completely unrealistic. I thought that they were going to always be home at this time and have this moment of greeting for me at the door. A big old fat hug. I've missed you all day. You're the man of my dreams. Thanks for working hard and providing for our family. But I walk in the door and there's just a bomb went off in there and there's food everywhere and there's smudges of Cheeto all over the window and you're like, huh, can you pick this up as soon as like what? We got expectations everywhere. And we walk around hurt and frustrated and wounded. And then when we come to speak life, we speak death. And the enemy's just wreaking havoc. And I want us to go, God, turn all of that upside down. Change all of that. You can do it, and it's got to start with me. And it's not a matter of willpower. And how I want to wrap up is to bring us back to the power of the gospel, because every single one of these things that we talked about today, we've talked about in the wisdom series thus far, we'll continue to talk about as we learn and lean into greater wisdom from God's word, is that none of this stuff is possible without the power of the gospel alive in our lives. And back to that question I asked at the very beginning, who or where has death been spoken over you? Some of us, all of this stuff has started a downhill avalanche in our relationships because of some death that's been spoken over us. And I want to wrap up this moment praying over you and speaking gospel life over you before we leave this place today. Because in all of this stuff, you can't take this and go, okay, I'm going to just force this stuff to work out in my life. I'm going to just willpower it. No, we can't. You can't do it on your own. You need the power of the cross. I need the power of the cross. I need the power of the fact that Jesus did what he did so that I can actually walk in this in a healthy way with grace, and the fact that I've been given grace and God has spoken life over me through Christ Jesus, that I'm a new creation. I'm not my sin. I'm not my failures. I'm not my weaknesses. You are not your mess ups and your failures and your weaknesses. Wait, look at me for a moment. You are not your mess ups and your failures and your weaknesses, or your sins, or your dark moments. You are not those things in those places and spaces. You are not what some of those people have spoken over you. You're not pretty enough, strong enough, capable enough, smart enough. You're worthless. You're just a weight. You're not. And I want to speak in the name of Jesus, a breaking of the bondages of some of the death that's been spoken over you. Because the power of the gospel is more powerful than any of that bondage that the enemy has held over you from the words that were really weighty that have been spoken over you. Whether they're words that you've spoken over yourself because you know the depths of your sin, you know what you struggle with, and you're like, I'm a dirtbag. I'm not worth anything. I'm not worth God's love. I'm not worth a good marriage. I'm not worth a good relationship. I'm not worth a guy's love or a woman's love or any of that. I'm not worth it because of no, garbage, lies. In Jesus' name, bondages be broken. So I want to pray for you. And I want to pray as I pray that the Spirit of God, whatever might be a stronghold in that space of death that has been spoken over you, would be broken in Jesus' name. And as I pray, I'm going to invite the prayer team to come up to the front to be ready to pray for people at the end of our time today.